They told him he was too slow, too soft, and not athletic enough for the modern game. They said his body didn't look like a basketball body, that he didn't jump high enough, run fast enough, or move explosively enough. In a world obsessed with speed, muscle, and highlight plays, Luka Doncic looked ordinary. Just another kid with a ball and a dream that seemed far too big for where he came from. But what nobody understood then was that Luka wasn't trying to look like a basketball player. He was trying to understand a game at a level most grown men never reach. Luka Doncic was born in Ljubljana, Slovenia, far from the bright lights of American basketball and far from the NBA arenas that would one day chant his name. He didn't grow up surrounded by scouts, cameras, or hype. He grew up in small gyms with cold floors, cracked walls, and the sound of a basketball echoing late into the night. His father was a professional basketball player, so the game was always close, always present, always waiting. But Luka didn't fall in love with basketball because he was told to. He fell in love with it because it spoke to him. From a young age, he saw the game differently. While other kids chased speed and flash, Luka chased control, timing, and rhythm. Even as a child, Luka stood out, not because he was better, but because he was different. He didn't dunk. He didn't overpower defenders. He didn't rely on raw athleticism. Instead, he watched, learned, and anticipated. He saw plays before they happened. He waited while others rushed. And because of that, many people underestimated him. Coaches questioned his physical tools. Other kids laughed at his lack of speed. Parents whispered that he was talented, but not special. That word followed him everywhere. Not special. But Luka didn't take it as an insult. He took it as information. He remembered every doubt, every look, every dismissal, storing it quietly while continuing to wake. At just 13 years old, Luka made a decision that would change his life forever. While most kids his age were focused on school, friends, and comfort, Luka left home. He moved away from his family, his country, and everything familiar to join Real Madrid's youth academy in Spain. 13 years old, in a foreign country, speaking a different language, eating different food, surrounded by people who didn't know or care who he was. There were no guarantees, no safety net, and no promises. Just a young boy chasing a dream and hoping he was strong enough to survive it. The early days in Madrid were brutal. The practices were harder, the gyms louder, and the competition unforgiving. Luka wasn't playing against kids anymore. He was facing young men fighting for their future. He was pushed, bumped, and out-muscled. He struggled to keep up physically and sometimes wondered if he had made a mistake. Some coaches doubted whether he belonged at that level. Some teammates ignored him on the court. At night, Luka would return to his room, alone and homesick, staring at the ceiling, missing his family and questioning himself. But quitting was never an option. Quitting would mean proving everyone right. And Luka Doncic was never interested in being right. He was interested in becoming ready. Instead of focusing on what he lacked, Luka sharpened what he already had. He didn't try to become the fastest or the strongest. He became the smartest. He studied angles, spacing, and timing. He learned how to control the pace of the game, how to slow it down when others tried to speed it up. Slowly, the same players who once bullied him began guarding him more carefully. The same coaches who once doubted him started trusting him with responsibility. Luka wasn't beating them with athleticism. He was beating them with understanding. He made defenders hesitate, veterans uncomfortable, and entire teams frustrated because they couldn't rush him. And that calm control became his greatest weapon. By the age of 16, Luka Doncic did something almost unheard of. He made his debut for Real Madrid senior team. Not a youth squad, not a developmental league. The senior team, grown men with years of experience, families to feed, and reputations to protect. Luka stepped onto the court looking young, almost fragile, but he played with confidence and composure. He made mistakes, missed shots, and got yelled at, but he never backed down. He didn't play like someone who was grateful to be there. He played like someone who belonged. Then came the EuroLeague, the highest level of basketball outside the NBA. The pressure was immense. The crowds were hostile. The competition was elite. And Luka didn't just survive, he led. At just 19 years old, Luka Doncic became the EuroLeague MVP, dominating grown professionals with skill, patience, and intelligence. 19 years old, the best player in Europe. Suddenly, the world had no choice but to pay attention. NBA scouts filled the stands. Analysts debated his future. Highlights spread across the internet. But even then, the doubts never disappeared. They simply evolved. People said he was too slow for the NBA, that European success wouldn't translate, that he wouldn't survive the athleticism of American basketball. Same doubt. New stage. On draft night, Luka sat in his chute, calm on the outside but burning inside. Picks pass. One team after another hesitated, choosing potential over proof, bodies over minds. They looked at what Luka wasn't instead of what he already was. When his name was finally called, it wasn't first or second, it was third. He smiled politely, but deep down, he remembered every team that passed on him. The NBA didn't welcome Luka Doncic, it tested him. Faster defenders, stronger bodies, relentless travel, and constant criticism. His rookie season wasn't easy. He missed shots, turned the ball over, and lost games. The critics were loud, waiting for him to fail, waiting to say they were right all along. But Luka had been here before. He had heard these words before. And every time doubt showed up in his life, it only sharpened his focus. What happened next wasn't just a breakout. It was a takeover. And when Luka finally stopped surviving and started dominating, the league realized something terrifying. Some boys don't grow into men. They arrive already prepared. The NBA did not greet Luka Doncic with open arms. It greeted him with pressure, skepticism, and a quiet expectation that he would eventually fall back into place. Faster guards tested him every night. Stronger forwards tried to bully him. Analysts dissected his body instead of his brain. They said the league was too athletic, too quick, too brutal for someone who didn't rely on speed or explosive power. Every missed shot became proof. Every loss became a headline. And every slow step became another reason for doubt. But Luka Doncic had learned something long before he ever arrived in America. Doubt doesn't disappear when you succeed. It only changes its language. What most people don't understand is that Luka never expected the NBA to be easy. He didn't arrive thinking he was owed greatness. He arrived prepared to wake, to adapt, and to suffer if necessary. His rookie season was a test of patience. There were nights when shots wouldn't fall, when defenders crowded him relentlessly, and when critics questioned whether he was truly a franchise player. But Luka never panicked. He never rushed. He never tried to become someone else just to fit in. Instead, he trusted the same thing that had carried him across countries, cultures, and leagues, his understanding of the game and his belief in himself when nobody else believed first. Behind the scenes, Luka worked obsessively. He studied film while others slept. He replayed mistakes in his mind until they turned into lessons. He trained not just his body, but his patience, his poise, and his resilience. Luka understood that greatness isn't built in moments of applause. It's built in silence, frustration, and repetition. Every criticism became fuel. Every overlooked achievement became motivation. He wasn't trying to prove people wrong out of anger. He was trying to prove to himself that he could survive anything thrown at him. Slowly, the league began to change its tone. Luka wasn't just scoring points. He was controlling games. He wasn't reacting to pressure. He was creating it. Defenders started double-teaming him. Coaches started designing entire game plans just to slow him down. And still, he found answers. Step-back threes, impossible passes, unshakable confidence in clutch moments. He wasn't overpowering opponents. He was outthinking them. And that made him dangerous. Then came the nights that turned belief into certainty. Triple-doubles that felt effortless. Game-winning shots that silenced arenas. Performances that made veterans shake their heads in disbelief. Luka wasn't playing like a young star learning the league. He was playing like a leader carrying the weight of an entire franchise. And the more pressure he faced, the calmer he became. While others sped up, Luka slowed the game down. While defenders panicked, Luka smiled. Because this wasn't chaos to him. This was clarity. What made Luka Doncic different wasn't just skill. It was his refusal to let circumstances define his ceiling. He didn't let his body type limit his belief. He didn't let criticism rewrite his identity. He didn't let early struggles convince him that he wasn't enough. Instead, he embraced the grind, understanding that growth often feels like failure before it feels like success. And that lesson goes far beyond basketball. It speaks to anyone who has ever felt behind, underestimated, or outmatched by life itself. There were playoff moments where the world watched closely, waiting for Luka to crack under pressure. Younger players are supposed to shrink when the lights get brighter. Luka did the opposite. He rose. He attacked. He dominated. Facing elite defenders and championship-caliber teams, he played with the confidence of someone who had already survived woes. Because when you've left home at 13, when you've been doubted your entire life, when you've learned to stand alone in unfamiliar places, pressure doesn't scare you. It sharpens you. Luka's story is not about talent alone. It's about endurance. It's about trusting your process when results don't come immediately. It's about staying patient when the world demands instant success. Luka didn't skip steps. He absorbed pain, doubt, and failure, then used them as building blocks. And that's a message for anyone listening who feels tired, stuck, or invisible right now. Progress is not always loud. Sometimes it looks slow. Sometimes it feels lonely. But it is still progress. As Luka continued to rise, something powerful happened. The same voices that once doubted him began to admire him. The same league that questioned his ability began to revolve around him. But Luka never changed his mindset. He didn't chase validation. He didn't play for approval. He played for mastery. And that is why his confidence never wavered. Because confidence built on external praise collapses under pressure, but confidence built on self-belief survives anything. Yet even with all the success, Luka's journey was far from complete. Championships were still out of reach. Expectations grew heavier. Critics found new angles. And the question changed once again. It was no longer whether Luka Doncic was great. It was whether he could carry greatness all the way to the top. Whether he could lead through adversity, heartbreak, and moments where talent alone wouldn't be enough. And that's where the story takes its hardest turn. Because the greatest test of Luka Doncic's career wasn't skill, speed, or intelligence. It was resilience. And when everything seemed within reach, when belief was at its highest, when the dream felt closest, the game tested him one more time. Success doesn't remove pain. It changes its shape. And for Luka Doncic, the higher he climbed, the heavier everything became. What once felt like a dream slowly turned into a responsibility that never slept. Every game carried expectations. Every possession carried judgment. Every mistake felt louder than before. The NBA no longer questioned if Luka was good enough. Now it demanded that he be everything. The scorer, the leader, the savior. And when a young man carries the hopes of a franchise, a city, and millions of fans, the pressure doesn't knock. It crashes through the door. Night after night, Luka played through exhaustion that cameras never showed. He played through sore legs, bruised ribs, and the mental fatigue of being the focal point of every defense. Teams didn't just guard him, they hunted him. Double teams came early. Traps came often. Defenders leaned, pushed, and tested his patience. And when his shots didn't fall, the noise returned instantly. They said he complained too much. They said he wasn't in shape. They said he couldn't lead a team deep into the playoffs. The same doubt that once followed him quietly now followed him loudly, broadcast to the world. There were nights Luka walked off the court frustrated, angry, and drained. Not because he didn't care, but because he cared too much. He knew what he was capable of. He knew how hard he worked. And yet, the results didn't always match the effort. Losses hurt more than ever. Playoff exits stayed in his mind longer than wins. And for the first time in his career, the weight of expectation began to show on his face. The joy he once played with was tested by responsibility, and the smile that came naturally now had to fight through pressure. Behind closed doors, Luka faced something far more dangerous than defenders. Doubt from within. Not doubt about his talent, but doubt about how long he could carry it all alone. He was still young, but the league treated him like a veteran. Still learning, but expected to deliver perfection. And when you give everything you have and it still isn't enough, the silence afterward becomes deafening. This is a part of success nobody prepares you for. The loneliness that comes when the world expects greatness but offers no relief. Criticism followed him everywhere. Social media dissected his body, his emotions, his reactions. Every gesture became a headline. Every complaint to a referee became a narrative. They questioned his maturity. They questioned his leadership. And slowly, the conversation shifted from admiration to pressure, From his special to why hasn't he won yet? Luka had climbed so fast that people forgot how young he still was. They forgot how long the journey truly is. And in forgetting that, they added weight he never asked for. There were playoff battles where Luka gave everything he had. Historic performances, impossible shots, moments that should have been enough. But basketball is not one alone. And when the season ended earlier than hoped, the blame didn't spread evenly. It landed heavily on his shoulders. Once again, Luka found himself staring at a ceiling late at night, not in a foreign country this time, but in the quiet of success, wondering how something so bright could feel so heavy. This was the crossroads, the moment that breaks many, the point where talent meets exhaustion, where dreams start asking for payment. Luka could have slowed down. He could have blamed others. He could have protected his image instead of pushing his limits. Many great players do, but Luka had never taken the easy road. And deep down, he knew this pain wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Because every great story has a chapter where the hero doubts himself. A chapter where the climb feels endless and the summit invisible. This is where people quit quietly. Not loudly, not dramatically. They just lose belief little by little. And Luka felt that danger. He felt how close frustration can come to surrender. How fatigue can whisper lies that sound reasonable. How success can become a cage if you stop growing inside it. But even in his darkest moments, Luka remembered the boy who left home at 13. The boy who survived alone. The boy who learned to trust himself when no one else did. He remembered that pressure had followed him his entire life, and every time, it shaped him instead of breaking him. And slowly, something inside him hardened. Not anger, not bitterness, resolve. Because Luka Doncic doesn't run from weight. He learns how to carry it. And just when the world started to wonder if he had reached his ceiling, just when fatigue, criticism, and expectations collided, just when the story seemed stuck between greatness and frustration, Luka made a decision that would redefine his future. A decision that would turn pressure into purpose. A decision that would silence doubt once again. Pain doesn't ask for permission before it changes you. It either hardens you or humbles you. And for Luka Doncic, it did both. After the criticism, the fatigue, the weight of expectations, and the nights where silence felt heavier than noise, Luka made a quiet but powerful choice. He stopped fighting the pressure. He stopped trying to outrun it. Instead, he learned to use it. He accepted that greatness was not meant to feel light, and once he did, something inside him settled. The game slowed again. The joy returned. Not the innocent joy of a child, but the calm confidence of someone who had survived enough to trust himself completely. Luka returned to the court with a different presence. Not louder, not flashier, just firmer. His movements were deliberate, his eyes steady. He no longer played to silence critics because he had learned critics never truly disappear. He played to honor the work, the sacrifices, and the boy who refused to quit when quitting would have been easier. Every possession became a statement. Every tough shot became a reminder. Every pass under pressure became proof that control still beats chaos. Luka wasn't chasing validation anymore. He was setting a standard. The league felt it. Defenses collapsed earlier. Opponents hesitated longer. Teammates trusted him deeper. In the biggest moments, when fatigue set in and pressure peaked, Luka leaned in instead of pulling back. He took responsibility when others avoided it. He demanded the ball when legs were heavy and minds were tired. Because leadership isn't about perfection, it's about presence. And Luka showed up every night, carrying the weight without complaint, without excuses. There were games where Luka looked unstoppable, not because he was faster or stronger, but because he was unshakable. He hit impossible shots with defenders draped over him. He controlled playoff games with a patience that made chaos look foolish. He reminded everyone watching that brilliance doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers and still dominates. The boy once labeled too slow had turned pace into a weapon. The kid once doubted had become the one everyone planned for and still couldn't stop. But Luka's story isn't just about basketball. It's about anyone who has ever been underestimated, overlooked, or told they weren't built for their dream. It's about the quiet strength it takes to keep going when progress feels invisible. Luka didn't rise because life was fair. He rose because he stayed when leaving made sense. He worked when results didn't come immediately. He believed when belief felt irrational. And that is the difference between those who admire greatness and those who become it. Look closely at Luka Doncic, and you'll see more than a superstar. You'll see a child who left home too early, a teenager who faced grown men without fear, a young star crushed under expectations, and a leader who chose resilience over resentment. Every setback shaped him. Every doubt sharpened him. Every loss taught him something no one ever could. Luka didn't avoid hardship. He absorbed it, learned from it, and turned it into leverage. This is why his story matters. Because talent alone doesn't carry you through dark seasons. Strength alone doesn't protect you from doubt. What carries you is a decision to keep moving when momentum is gone, to keep believing when evidence is thin, to keep showing up when applause fades. Luka Doncic is living proof that progress is not always explosive. Sometimes it's slow, heavy, and painful. But if you endure it, it compounds. And here is the truth this story leaves behind. You don't have to look like everyone else to succeed. You don't have to move like everyone else to win. You don't have to rise fast or rise far. You just have to stay. Stay when it's lonely. Stay when it's uncomfortable. Stay when doubt feels louder than hope. Because one day, if you endure long enough, the world won't ask if you belong. It will adjust to you. Luka Doncic was once a boy they didn't take seriously. Now, he is the standard they measure everyone against. And if you're watching this while tired, discouraged, or close to giving up, remember this. The dream isn't dead. It's waiting for you to decide. There comes a moment in every journey where talent no longer matters, where skill takes a backseat, and where the only thing left is endurance. That moment is where most people stop. Not because they are weak, but because they are tired. Tired of trying. Tired of waiting. Tired of believing without proof. Luka Doncic reached that moment too. And the reason his story matters is not because he never struggled, but because he refused to stop standing when everything inside him wanted rest. By the time Luka became a global superstar, people only saw the highlights, the step-back threes, the game winners, the records. They didn't see the quiet mornings when motivation felt heavy. They didn't see the nights when the pressure followed him home. They didn't see the doubt that crept in after losses, the criticism that never slept, or the exhaustion that success brings when expectations never lower. Luka didn't become great because life became easier. He became great because he learned how to keep going when it didn't. And that's the truth nobody tells you. Dreams don't die from failure. They die from fatigue. They die when progress feels slow and comparison feels loud. They die when the world rushes you but growth refuses to hurry. Luka's journey proves that the space between where you are and where you want to be is not crossed by talent alone. It's crossed by staying longer than doubt expects you to. Think about it. He was too slow, too soft, too young, too emotional, too European, too much of everything they didn't want. And yet, he became unavoidable. Not because he fit the mold, but because he broke it. Luka didn't wait for permission. He didn't wait to be understood. He didn't wait for perfect conditions. He worked with what he had, where he was, and who he was, and that was enough. If you are watching this feeling behind in life, this part is for you. If you feel like your effort isn't matching your results, this part is for you. If you are close to quitting not because you don't believe anymore, but because you are exhausted from believing alone, hear this clearly. Being tired does not mean you are failing. It means you are still fighting. And if you are still fighting, you are closer than you think. Luka Doncic didn't become the player he is today by avoiding pain. He became who he is by surviving it, by carrying pressure without letting it turn into bitterness, by absorbing doubt without letting it become identity, by understanding that greatness is not about never breaking. It's about rebuilding faster each time you do. And that lesson is bigger than basketball. It's a blueprint for life. There will be moments when your dream feels quiet, when progress feels invisible, when people stop asking how it's going because they assume it's over. That doesn't mean it is. Some of the most powerful transformations happen in silence. Some of the strongest comebacks begin when nobody is watching. Luka's story reminds us that timing is not rejection, it's preparation. So if life has slowed you down, good, learn the game. If pressure has made you uncomfortable, good, you're growing. If doubt has followed you, good, it means you're aiming high. You don't need to be the fastest. You don't need to be the loudest. You don't need to look like everyone else. You just need to stay in the fight. Because one day, sooner than you think, the same world that questioned you will be watching you differently. Not asking if you can do it, but wondering how you did. And when that day comes, it won't be because you were special from the start. It will be because you refused to stop. Luka Doncic was once a boy playing against grown men. Now is proof that endurance beats doubt. And if you're still here, still trying, still hoping, then your story isn't over. This is not the end. This is the moment you decide to stay.